friends, welcome to another WSIB Truth Matters with Joe Machado on this beautiful sunny Monday. I hope you enjoyed a beautiful Mother's Day weekend with your family and loved ones. It was great here at the house. We had my daughter and her husband and our beautiful granddaughter over to celebrate Mother's Day. Always a happy time when we have the house filled. So I hope you enjoyed the same. Anyway, so today I'm going to talk about a matter that it's always a source of confusion among not only just injured workers, but even in the medical profession as it relates to the policy of chronic pain disability that the WSIB has, and how the term chronic pain used by the medical community can sometimes create a little bit of confusion with injured workers, particularly those who are suffering from chronic pain disability. I can tell you that over the years with my company, we had a lot of chronic pain disability claims that we dealt with, and it's a policy that has a lot of ambiguity, and it creates a lot of confusion. And even to this day, I still look at it, and I look at a conversation with an injured worker where some of the traits of chronic pain disability may be present, but not necessarily all of them. It's an extensive policy that the WSIB has to handle the matter of chronic pain disability, and they even mess it up at times. So it's not straightforward at all. So I'm going to talk about that today, and I'm going to try and help bring about a better understanding of chronic pain disability within the allowance in terms of a claim under both Bill 162, Pre-Bill 162, and Bill 99, because essentially the policy is the same in how it looks at chronic pain for those or covered under those particular legislations. This policy, and I'm going to put it up on the screen as I'm going to refer to it, it's covered under document 150403. It's in the WSIB's operational policy manual. And it's what case managers have to follow when they're considering entitlement under chronic pain disability. So I'm going to list that policy there. I caution you though, when you go and read the policy, you'll be confused as hell. Trust me. So what I want to do is talk about the basics, because if you understand the basics, then it's much easier to understand whether or not your doctor or someone who labels you as having chronic pain, whether or not it actually satisfies the WSIB's criteria. And so it's a 5-point criteria that they look at to make a decision on chronic pain disability. I'm just going to go through each one of them. So the first criteria is that a work-related injury occurred. It's pretty simple, because without a work-related injury, there's no point in applying this policy. So that's the first step. That's easy. The second one is that the chronic pain is caused by the injury. So in other words, you had this injury, the injury caused pain. It could be some initial pain, it could have been a fracture, it could have been a break, it could have been a muscle pull. And so that pain obviously is derived from the injury. And it's not necessarily just pain that would otherwise be seen in a X-ray or a CT scan or some sort of a neurological test, but it doesn't necessarily have to have medical evidence behind it. But the reality is that it's there, and so it's a continuous pain that you continue to experience on an ongoing basis that may or may not be covered by medical. So that would be the subjective aspect of the pain. Objective aspect of the pain would be a pain that's obviously resulting or that's shown through an X-ray or MRI or a CT scan or something like that, where there's a real connection there. Another part within this section, the chronic pain is caused by the injuries, a medical opinion that the characteristics of the pain, except its persistence and or its severity, are compatible with the injury. So, in other words, your doctor is, you're talking about the pain, you're complaining about the pain, they are characteristics of that injury. That pain that you're complaining about is as a result of the injury and not some other factor, whether concurrent or previous or something that just happened recently that can somewhat confuse the matter. The other third point is that the pain persists 6 or more months beyond the usual healing time of the injury. So certain injuries have a particular healing time. So if you break your wrist, for example, it's got a cast on, then there's that healing time, and then the cast is taken off. Then there's some physio that goes on with it, and within a particular time period, which is called the usual healing time for that injury, it heals. So what they mean by this is that pain persists 6 or more months after the usual healing time for that injury. So from a medical standpoint, from an objective standpoint, it's healed, but you continue to have the pain. Within that third point, and that there shall be subjective or objective medical or non-medical evidence of the worker's continuous, consistent, and genuine pain for 6 months or more beyond the usual healing time. So again, it's not a pain that sort of, comes on and then dissipates and then comes on, and there's a consistent persistence of pain for 6 or more months beyond the usual healing time for that injury. So that would qualify to meet that third of the 5-point criteria. The fourth one is the degree of pain is inconsistent with organic findings. So this one can be a bit confusing. And that's where you've had an injury, you've had treatment, there were some tests that showed that, okay, yeah, as a result of this shows that there was an injury. You've had some physio, some treatment, and then at some point, presumably it's healed. So the actual injury itself. So when they talk about a medical opinion that indicates the inconsistency of that pain with organic findings, is at that point where the doctor looks at the situation and looks at testing. The tests reveal that, yes, it's healed, whether it was a fracture or break or a pull or a strain. The treatment, it's gone as far as it's going to, but yet you continue to experience pain. And that pain isn't consistent with the findings that it shows that the actual injury itself healed. Nonetheless, you continue to have pain. So it's inconsistent with organic findings that, by all accounts, demonstrate that you should be healed. You shouldn't be experiencing any pain. And then the last one is that the chronic pain impairs the earning capacity. And this is a big one. I've had clients go for treatment and test after test and more treatment, and the tests show that everything's fine. But they still do some additional treatment. The treatment isn't working. The pain continues, and the worker can't work because the pain is so incapacitating that it prevents the worker from being able to do any kind of work. And not just from working, but activities that would normally apply for that person, like hobbies and house chores and things of that nature. So the person has become completely incapacitated by the pain, that he or she can no longer work, and therefore the degree of pain impairs the earning capacity. And this is what would be considered one of the terms that the WSIB uses a lot, which is marked life disruption. And essentially what that means is that pretty much every aspect of your life has been disrupted as a result of this ongoing pain. So when they look at this 5-point criteria, and they're trying to determine whether or not your case falls under the chronic pain policy guidelines, as you can see, it's a 5-point criteria, which can be very confusing. But all of those 5 points must be met in order for the WSIB to accept that the condition is more suited to under the chronic pain disability policy. So I'm going to tell you what we did in my company over the years to present a case on behalf of a client for chronic pain disability. And although we had large success rate overall with the cases, the thousands of cases that we handled, chronic pain disability it's one of those policies that it's just so very difficult to get all of those 5-point criteria lined up to an extent that WSIB accepts that there is a chronic pain eligibility in the claim. But then the other issue, which becomes the more significant issue, is that how does that chronic pain disability impair the person from being able to work, from being employable? And this is where I always found, in a sort of rather cynical way, the inefficiency of the WSIB verbiage that's used in these policies, and how they're supposed to look at them in terms of making a ruling on a particular issue of entitlement, and how they're saying one thing but doing another. And I scratch my head, and it's like, okay, well, how the hell do you do that? And this is what I'm referring to. So the 5th point that I mentioned in the 5 points is the chronic pain impairs earning capacity. So that means that in order for it to be accepted as chronic pain within their guidelines, they must see and recognize and accept that it impairs the earning capacity. And yet, when they accept the chronic pain, the 5 categories, and accept the case as being chronic pain disability, oftentimes they say that the person can still work and earn money. And they accept that. They expect that to be the case. Now, how many of you have been accepted for chronic pain disability where the pain is so debilitating that it affects every single aspect of your life? And the WSIB accepted that you have chronic pain disability. And yet, they expect you to be able to earn. Doesn't that defy that 5th point, the premise for them having accepted chronic pain disability? Because on one hand, they say, well, it must show that it's impaired your earning capacity. And then on the other hand, when they've accepted it, they're saying, well, you can still work. Does that make any sense to you? Because it doesn't make any sense to me whatsoever. But this is how they do shit in their infinite wisdom. This is where policies get created but applied how they choose that they're going to apply it. Without adhering to the law and adhering to the strictest of their own language. Because if they're saying that it must impair the earning capacity in order to qualify for chronic pain, and then in the same breath saying, well, but we still think that you should be able to earn. I don't know on what planet that makes any sense, but on this one that we live in, it doesn't. And this is where then you have to engage in, reconsiderations after reconsideration after reconsideration, and then appeals if need be, because they're not even adhering to their own language, like the bullshit that they've written themselves. Anyway, so when my firm, every time that we would put together an argument for chronic pain disability, and believe me, there's a lot of times I didn't want to do that because I had a gut feeling that even if they accepted it, our client would be in a worse position than if they just accepted the organic part of the impairment and just leave it at that. That deals with more sort of the semantics of, on an individual basis, how the WSIB looks at a level of impairment, which would be more than what I can talk about now because then it would be very confusing. But if you have any issues of chronic pain that haven't been properly addressed the way that you think they should have, and they meet this criteria, by all means, send me an email with your situation, and I'll respond to it on a one or individual basis, because a lot of this is applied on a very individual basis. And I'm saying this because they have trouble accepting their own policy, even though they've written it. So here's 2 things that we always focused on. One is that there's medical, so that the medical information, and preferably from a psychologist or psychiatrist, or even a physiatrist, there's medical to show that yes, there was an injury, the injury healed, but the person kept complaining of pain. We've done more tests, we've done more treatment, nothing seems to work, the pain has continued to persist. It's been 8, 9, 10 months after the injury, and it's chronic pain. That pretty much, that level of medical would satisfy the first 4 points of that 5-point criteria. And then the next thing that we would do with our clients is we would do a market life disruption questionnaire. And that would help to satisfy the first 4 points of the criteria, because the market life disruption is very much supportive of those 4 points criteria, but really supports the last one, which is the earning capacity. And so we would either myself or one of my paralegals would meet with the client and go through this questionnaire in detail and get as much information as possible, and then put together that market life disruption report, which basically looks at a myriad of activities that have been disrupted in as much detail as possible to show that there is a significant market life disruption as a result of that ongoing pain. I'm just going to go through a few of them here. So constant and unremitting pain. So it's there all the time. Pain upon movement or use of the painful body part. So in other words, the area that you actually were injured. Specific activities aggravate the pain. For example, washing dishes. You'll have pain when you start, but it's going to be worse as you continue to wash dishes. Sitting, standing, walking, or limited to short periods of time of walking or standing or sitting. Difficulty getting in and out of bed in the morning due to stiffness and pain. Sleep regularly disturbed by the pain. So in other words, you don't wake up and with pain, but the pain wakes you up, if that makes any sense. Sleeping medication is required to help you sleep. Increased or constant tiredness. So you do minimal stuff, you get tired quickly. Feeling of unsteadiness when standing, and dizziness and headaches. So all of these symptoms and activities that are challenged by your pain. So we have with WSIBsettlements.com, we have a very specific chronic pain disability settlement kit, and it does have with the kit, it does come with the questionnaire for that you could fill in to do the market life disruption report, and it comes with a special medical report that you would take to your doctor. It's specifically written for that purpose, so the doctor can comment, and then you can submit your kit to the WSIB to have them consider chronic pain disability. It's exactly the same thing that we would be doing. Now it's in the form of a kit under WSIBsettlements.com. So I'll put the link on the screen here so you can go to WSIBsettlements.com and have a look. Okay, so that pretty much concludes the chronic pain part of this video. I hope that I was able to give you some specific, tangible information to help you understand where you're at with your chronic pain issue, whether or not the board has accepted it, whether you're in the process of having them accept it, whether you haven't even heard about it, but your doctor's starting to talk about chronic pain, and you should have healed by now, but you haven't. So anyway, I hope that this helps. And as always, if you have any questions whatsoever pertaining to the matter of chronic pain disability, send me an email with your particular circumstances, and I'll reply with my thoughts and guidance on there. Okay, so thanks for taking the time to watch this. Tomorrow, I'm going to cover the issue of psychotraumatic disability. And so a lot of people sometimes confuse chronic pain disability with psychotraumatic disability. They are totally separate, and they each have a very specific policy. So don't take anything that I've talked today about chronic pain disability and assume that it satisfies or that it's the same as a psychotraumatic disability claim. It's not. Okay, so tomorrow I'm going to talk about psychotraumatic disability, the policy, and what needs to happen, what the WSIB considers in order to accept a claim for psychotraumatic disability. And I assure you, it's as equally confusing as the chronic pain disability policy. I mean, if it wasn't, we wouldn't know that it was the WSIB, right? We would think that it was some actual organization that actually was very clear about what they cover and don't, so people aren't confused and have to hire lawyers and all kinds of specialists to help them. If it was that easy, I wouldn't be sitting here. Another issue I wanted to talk to you about briefly is our ongoing discussion, our ongoing mission, and this movement that we've started, which is the WSIB's deeming. And we want to end the WSIB's deeming practices. It shouldn't exist. It is one of the most punitive policies that I have ever read in over 30 years of dealing with the WSIB. It shouldn't exist because it ruins people's lives, and we need to get rid of it. And so I've started a movement to make that happen, and I'm enlisting as much help as I can to do it. Deeming. If you had an injury after January 1st, 1990, and the WSIB used a vocational goal that you would be able to do some kind of a job and that it was going to pay you certain earnings, and they basically picked those earnings out of the air, that's deeming. And if those earnings was used by the WSIB in the subsequent reviews of your future economic loss awards, and you saw your benefits decreased, it's all because of their deeming practices. And the same goes for Bill 99 claims for loss of earnings benefits. If you saw your loss of earnings benefits become partial loss of earnings and they became eroded at each review, that was also done as a result of deeming. So the board's deeming practices has applied to thousands of injured workers and ill workers for the last almost 30 years. It needs to be gone. It may still impact your entitlement. So you need to get involved and help us do this. There really is very little that you need to do. Just subscribe to the channel. That's how I'm going to communicate our efforts and the steps that we're taking. And by subscribing and getting your name on the list, it may have a lot to do with how that policy is changed, how it's and how it impacts any previous decisions. Because we're coming after it. We're not going to wait for politicians to do it. We need to come after it now, and we need to get rid of it. All right? So I did a video on this last week. The caption or thumbnail is deemed or damned. Have a look at it, and please subscribe. That's the only way that you can help yourself and help others so we can get rid of this deeming policy, which is criminal as far as I'm concerned and has ruined thousands of injured workers' lives. We got to stop it. All right, friends, if you haven't already subscribed to the channel, please do. It's free. Please share my videos with others. You might be able to help somebody who needs help now and isn't aware of the fact that they can be helped through this medium. Give me a thumbs up if you like my content. If you want me to talk about a particular subject, please write down on the comments or send me an email, and I'll work it into my videos. All right, friends, and as always, have an amazing evening. Take care.